All right, why don't we go ahead and get started? I want to thank you all for attending. We have about 100 that have signed up for this webinar, so certainly appreciate you making the time. Been an interesting year for sure. A lot of changes in how marketers are using agencies, a lot of new things in the technology space, a lot of new tools available to agencies to help them improve the way they search for new business. And I believe generally positive feeling about where the industry is and a positive outlook for the coming year. So let's go ahead and move on. Talk a little bit about ourselves briefly here, and then we'll get into the meat of the presentation. For those of you that don't know us, we're RSW. I started the business in 2005. We're an outsourced lead generation and business development group. We work with about 50 agencies across the U.S. We exist because it's a tough business, finding new business, and this is all we do. We have one other business and plan on adding two more, both list service offerings as we roll into 2018. The other business that exists today is an agency search business. We run maybe 2 to 4 searches a year for marketers, which is great because it gives us some added perspective that really no other firm has. Also gives us the ability to see into the mind of the marketer a bit. Potentially before they're ready to search for an agency. Every week we send blog content about finding new agencies to roughly 50,000 marketers. We share all that engagement activity with our new business directors who then use that insight to target those that make sense for their clients. So unlike other folks out there that claim to kind of be the fortune tellers when in reality they're just aggregating data, like the reports we get daily on new hires across industries and news about companies and people. And if you believe in inbound and aperture marketing, then we get a look that's different and potentially more predictive than anyone else out there. So every search we've run has come as a result of marketers reaching out to us after reading this content, not us reaching out to them. So really good stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. This webinar is based off of the 2017 new business survey we recently completed among marketers and agencies. This is our 5th annual new business survey, so that history has provided us with some good insights into the changes in the market, which hopefully will prove of value to you as we kind of work through some of the discussion today. The survey was sent to roughly 5,000 agencies and then our database of 50,000 marketers. Always great getting perspective from both sides of the fence. Sometimes what agencies think to be true isn't necessarily so, and vice versa. So always some good information that comes out of these studies. And speaking of today, we hope you walk away with actionable ideas. I'm a big believer in 2 things among others. One is giving our thinking away. It's how we established and helped build this business. The second thing is never complain without providing solutions. So while I won't be complaining today, I will point out issues and challenges, and I'll offer up my perspective on things you can do as an agency to counter some of these forces at play in the market today. Okay, so on to our first topic of discussion, new business directors. New business directors are to the success of an agency new business program, like building good lists are to the success of a successful direct marketing program. It's critical to get this first step correct if you're going to have any shot of countering the changing environment in the world of agency new business. So I'm sure you are a new business director, you've hired one or more new business directors in your time, or you happen to know one. In 2015, Adweek wrote a piece about the same survey of ours and called the job of new business director the most dangerous job in an agency. And I believe it is, and some of it isn't really fair, but some of it is somewhat self-inflicted by the agency. So 45%, according to our survey, 45% of you have hired a new business director in the past. The rest of you likely have either felt you haven't needed one because referrals and networking, existing client growth was good, or you as the principal or key member of the management team are doing all the outreach on your own. So remember all the talk about CMO tenure, maybe 7 to 10 years ago, how CMOs weren't lasting more than a couple of years. Well, they've gotten better, and our friends in the new business director role have not improved. CMOs now outlive new business directors, which frankly isn't great for an agency if they're jumping from new business director to new business director, who each use different techniques, materials, methodologies for outreach. So why is such a short shelf life for NBDs or new business directors? Part of it has to do with the nature of the position and the job they're being asked to do. Cultivating new business takes time. Seeing a new business director in an agency not generate much or any work over a period of time can be frustrating and expensive, especially given the salaries paid by some of these new business directors. So that certainly is part of it. I think the other big part of it, based on our experience walking in the door into a client engagement behind what was an NBD, and based on our learnings from surveys like this, is that new business directors most often fail because they don't have the support of the agency, either wrong or no tools, no lists or bad lists, no methodology. They also don't have the experience, and bringing someone junior into the job isn't a good way to go. They may be cheap, but high energy doesn't translate into automatic success. And finally, they aren't prepared. Selling ethereal agency services is different than selling medical supplies or advertising for a magazine. It takes knowledge of the agency world to know how to best sell an agency. And in our survey, 45% of agencies said their new business director failed because they didn't have a solid methodology. 35% said they were not tenured or too green. And 25% said they didn't understand the agency. So what to do? CMOs have gotten better. These numbers have only gotten worse. So what is an agency to do? I think, really all starts with better hiring. We've all been there. We've been in a hurry to get somebody on board, maybe compromised a bit, maybe overlooked a potential issue thinking that it'll go away. When I first started this business, I thought it was important that new business directors had marketing experience and agency experience, and just figured, like me, when I walked into my first selling job and brought those two skill sets, I'd never sold before, but eventually figured it out, and I figured they could do the same. And unfortunately, that wasn't so. So today, we look for strong salespeople first, and in our world, they have to have inside selling experience because it's really different than outside selling. They also need to have some marketing and have to either have worked for an agency or worked for one or with one, having been on the marketing side. It's critical that they understand the agency world, and it's critical that they understand marketer pains and challenges. But equally, if not more important, they have to be able to sell. And just because they sell doesn't mean they're the right kind of salesperson. While you want them to be money motivated, you also want to know that they're genuinely motivated by helping improve the lives of the marketers that they're reaching out to. In our world, I want to know that our new business directors can not only do that, but are motivated to make our agency clients' lives better. And if they're so me-focused that that can also be a warning sign too. There's an entire agency that sits behind them that these folks need to work well with. So the last thing you want to do is have them bring somebody on board and have them steamroll the agency. Same thing here. They have to play nice with the list team, the Marcom team, our mailing coordinator, our program manager oversees the performance of all of our programs. Too much self-focus just isn't a good thing. You also want to know if they can connect the dots. Can they look at your body of work and tell you where they think you should best focus? Or can they look at your agency and after some study and due diligence, tell you how to best position it or draft a communication to a prospect? These are all important things that you need to find out first before bringing them on board. And as silly as this may sound, you need to know if they can write. I think it was early on in our existence, like 2006 or 2007, we interviewed this guy who we all loved. We thought he'd be a great fit, but he couldn't write to save his life. We now have a pretty comprehensive writing test. We give prospective new business directors a test writing and test their ability to connect the dots. And one other thing to consider that we started doing a couple of years ago after we read a review on Glassdoor about our interviewing process was to divide and conquer. This particular reviewer on Glassdoor indicated that we all asked the same things. So her complaint was, how can they really get to know me? Now we each take an area of focus to zero in on. During the questioning, I focus on how well they understand us, and I try and get a sense of cultural fit. Others focus on things like creativity and problem solving. Others on stick-to-itness, organizational skills. Others focus on working with teams. And then we regroup after the interview to discuss our findings, and we don't hire unless we're all a thumbs up. And the last thing you may want to do to consider is doing some testing for their sales aptitude. We're now using a group called Asher to help us with our training and testing, and so far they seem to be working out well. We compare candidates' scores to our top performing new business directors, as it just helps point us in the right direction relative to our hires. And if interested, the site is asherstrategies.com. Okay, let's move off of the new business director and onto the climate of new business in general. 34% of you in our survey think the business of finding new business has gotten a lot tougher this year. And the number one reason why any of you think new business is tough is because it's so hard to break through to prospects these days. 69% of you noted that was the number one reason. You've got firewalls, elimination of voicemails that some companies are doing, hardcore gatekeepers, all these things working against you. Many of you feel there are fewer opportunities out there, which also partly contributes to the challenge. But the other big contributor is the fact that referrals are on the decline. With consolidation of companies, there are fewer marketers moving from company to company. With so many agencies vying for marketers' attention, it's easier for them to pick from a pool of agencies. We see it on the agency search side of our business as the number of searches we've managed has fallen off over the years, and I know the same is true of the agency search industry in general. You know, marketers are managing their own searches because they have a stable of agencies that have reached out to them that look to be viable contenders, and this takes referral opportunities away. And the other challenge facing agencies, why they have such a hard time busting through, is because marketers are getting inundated with calls and emails from you. 60% of marketers say that they get 6 to 10 calls from agencies every week. 35% get 11 or more, and 8% get 20 or more contacts a week from agencies. So it's no wonder companies are turning off voicemails, and companies are making it harder for emails to get through. You know, if you're not dedicated to your practice of new business full-time, and you don't have someone doing it for you, or you don't have somebody doing it for you inside your four walls, you know, it's only going to get that much tougher. We conducted an analysis of meetings by industry to see how many touches it took just to get a meeting. And the range was from a low of 5 in the manufacturing space to a high of 11 in CPG. Again, that's just to get a meeting. So persistence here is really key. But so is defining your space effectively. I know it's tough to be a one-of-a-kind in the agency world, but do try and be something more than just another full-service agency. In this survey, 52% of agencies responding identified themselves as a full-service agency. In 2008, 64% of agencies responded by identifying themselves as a full-service agency. So while it's nice to see fewer agencies define themselves so simply without any real definition around the specifics of their business, it's still concerning that so many firms out there do not put themselves in a bucket that's more uniquely defined. Establishing your point of difference has to be job number one. Agencies need to think about their worlds in a different way. When I kick off a new client and spend half a day with them, I'm digging around for the RTBs, or the reasons to believe why someone would want to sit down and talk with them. Some of it might be deep-seated base of experience in a category. Some of it might be the types of clients they represent. Some of it might be unique sources of insights. Some of it could be hardcore expertise in a particular offering. Or some of it could be a unique way marketers in their space historically haven't looked at their business, or maybe some combination of a number of those different things. And it really all starts with how you want prospects to view you and what it's going to take for that marketer to say, I want to talk with you because I believe you can bring a different type or level of thinking into my business. When you call, assuming you break through, you've got 5 seconds to make a first impression and try and secure that first meeting. Just talking about how strategic you are as your point of difference isn't going to make the marketer stand up and take notice. When you're in front of them for half an hour, on the phone with them, for a longer period of time, you can get into more of a discussion around strategy. But initially, when busting through, you've got to be more narrowly defined than that. And the message you use when you call or you email really should be the same message that the prospect sees everywhere. On your site, in your letters, in your blog, in your presentation. The last thing you want your prospect to do is hear your voicemail about your point of difference and then turn to your site and see something completely counter to the message that they just heard. And the last thing is stick with it. You're going to get more bored with your positioning or your site or your presentation than the prospect is. What's old to you is still likely very new to the marketer you're connecting with. So don't do as some agencies try and do, which is change up the positioning and messaging just because they're tired of it. With so many agencies calling marketers and so many touches required to get a meeting, you need some measure of frequency to truly and meaningfully be heard. So, stick to it. Okay, so on to the next chapter, one that I'm sure many of you have felt and seen. We'll talk about the implications for agencies and what they can and need to do to make it all work for them. So we'll start with some good news. 76% of agencies think that the amount of new business they've reeled in this year is the same or more than they did in 16. Only 24% experienced a decrease. And compare that to 2014, where 46% of agencies experienced a decrease in new business activity, and that 24 actually, feels pretty good comparatively. The bad news is that lots of marketers are moving agency services in-house. 67% this year stated that they've moved some of their work their agency once did in-house. I'm sure you're all seeing it. I'm sure you're all feeling it to some extent. This is the first year we've asked this question, so we don't have a basis for comparison in years past, but anecdotally I can tell you from our experience managing agency new business programs for agencies for the past 12 years that there was very little of this going on in 2005. I think the likely shift was 2008 when the recession hit and more marketers started believing that they could more affordably manage services by bringing them inside. Seems that what may have started there hasn't really stopped or slowed down. Personally, I don't think the agency world is at any risk of going away as we know it today. I do believe, however, that if an agency is to survive long term, they're going to have to change the way they operate, how they're structured, and how they go about finding new opportunities. So while the 67% number is a bit unsettling, the stuff that marketers are bringing in, really is going to primarily hurt those agencies that are pure tactical players and possibly pure play social media firms, as 90+% of marketers stated that the work that they're bringing in-house is basic design work in social media. Not to be ignored is the fact that marketers said, to some extent that PR and digital marketing were also things that they're bringing in-house, along with some that are bringing in full-on campaign development. So it's going to happen. But if what we see is any indication of what's really going on in the market, marketers either can't manage it all. They find eventually they can't manage it all. They realize that in-house teams aren't as strategic or creative, or they simply get locked in their box because the political issues internally are keeping them there, and they need to get out, and they need to find an agency to help them out. So the opportunities are out there. We're seeing it happen. They do and will continue to look a little bit different than what we're used to seeing historically. And because they look different, it means you're going to have to work a little bit harder. 59% of marketers tell us that 26% of the work that they push out to agencies is in the form of project work. 28% of marketers stated that 76% plus of the work that they assign is project-based. And we'll talk about this in a second, but all the dynamics at play here that we've talked about today, coupled with the move to in-house services and project-based assignments, simply means you need to work differently to win business and differently to turn those wins into larger assignments with your newly acquired clients. So the good news about more project opportunities is that there is more out there to be had, more chances to win, albeit smaller prizes nonetheless. As we look ahead to 2018, 54% of agencies expect the opportunities for new business to increase for them. In 2014, only 42% of you felt this way. I suspect some of it is just the general good nature of the economy, and some of it is tied to the abundance of project opportunities that prior to their existence used to keep agencies away. Marketers had their firms, and there wasn't any reason, to bring somebody new on board unless you were switching out AORs, and not so much today, and that can be a good thing. So what do you do amidst all of this change? I think the first thing is to look at your project opportunities like you'd look at a long-term stock investment. What does the long-term gain from the short-term investment mean for my agency? Is there more to be had potentially? Are there other brands or brand people I can tap into and leverage the project work we did? What will one project in this category mean for my opportunities for more business growth in this category? What is the state of their current agency relationship? Is it stable, or is there an opportunity for my agency to conquer that client's world? The first project may not be a big money maker of large proportion, but it might be just what you need to prove out your value and make a statement in that marketer's organization. And you need to fight to win it, which I know is no real surprise to an agency, as they know how they need to compete to win. But it's different when it's a project, so I've seen with our agency clients, agencies I've talked to, sometimes it's tough to get excited about a $50,000 or $100,000 or maybe even $150,000 project. So you don't go into it as focused as you should be. Every call you have with that prospect should be centered on the prospect. The first call should be 80% them talking, 20% you talking. You need to work them to a second meeting when you're on that first call. And in that second meeting, get them to agree to a strategy or some initial thinking, then present a proposal that can help you and them win the day. Study hard, be prepared, be creative, show them you care. These are principles you'd follow when you're pitching for the whole enchilada, trying to win the entire client business. You now need to do it when marketers are looking just to simply sample your wares and assign project work. And of course, you need to deliver in order to make this all work. At RSW, we have plenty of stories about winning than delivering. One in particular, I like an agency out in Oklahoma that really wanted to bust outside of their state, couldn't for the life of them. We helped them shape a really tight positioning, helped them put collateral together to tell the story, gave them feedback on things like site redesigns, etc. Their new business director here at RSW worked it hard, opening doors at companies all around their region, one of which he found out had a few agencies they weren't too terribly happy with and wanted to give our agency client a try. After completing a successful $150,000 rebranding campaign or assessment and development exercise, the marketer decided that they were worthy enough to bring them on board, knocking out all the other firms and assigning this 7-figure AOR to our agency client. So just like it might be hard to pull it all together when prospecting for that project opportunity, it might also be hard to rally the troops to see the value in working too hard to deliver on a project opportunity. But you need to do it. You need to help the agency see the value of getting involved on what might be a smaller level than they're typically used to, with the prospects of seeing longer term future gains. And my guess is that in many cases, winning and successfully delivering on one project doesn't mean you're handed the keys to the castle. So just recognize that you may have to keep fighting to win more and create a sustainable relationship. Use your new business director to help you find your way into more divisions or brands, leveraging the work you just successfully completed for that first project. Fighting for more may be just as tough as it was for fighting for that first one, but you have to keep it up. Remember those 21 plus calls a week that these marketers are getting from you agencies. And if you're not in their face, the agency down the street or the 20 others in your space or your region will be putting that call in and getting to know that marketer. All right, so now we're going to close out with a look at where the industry and you as an agency in a sea of agencies stands. We asked marketers and agencies what the primary benefits were of working with an agency. The top 3 you chose and the top 3 marketers chose: strategy, creative expertise, and innovative ideas were aligned. So it's good to see both groups aligned in terms of defining those top 3. It's stuff like this that's going to keep the in-house movement at bay and continue to keep agencies of all types and sizes keep you is real value to your marketing counterparts. I like the relationship with marketers isn't purely a creative one, it's a business one. You're here to help them build their business and be a smart, strategic steward of their brand, not just a creative supplier. So while the fact that there is alignment on what you're giving them, there are some differences in magnitude of the two groups, the biggest of which is marketing efficiency, where 67% of marketers feel like this is an important benefit of working with a good marketing agency, but only 49% of agencies feel it's important for them to bring this to the table. So while you're all fairly aligned on things like strategy and innovative ideas and creative, marketing efficiencies are one area that agencies potentially don't make a big enough deal about. In our current survey that we're just releasing now for responses, we ask about the importance of data and analytics when selecting an agency. In years past, marketers have told us that this is an important and growing need that they have and they'd like their agencies to possess. I suspect these two are tightly tied. Data and analytics brings efficiency. Marketers want and value efficiency, and therefore agencies need to make sure they're on top of the game when it comes to delivering for their clients. The good news is that marketers are optimistic about agencies. 67% of marketers think that the marketing services industry is adapting well to the modern world. So most, are confident that even if your agency isn't the best at being efficient or on top of the latest in technology or trends, you'll get there, or at least most of you will. Most of you, being 81% of you, are viewed confidently by your marketing counterpart. We asked them specifically about their agency. 19% of marketers surveyed didn't feel like their own agency was on top of the way things should be, and hopefully you're not one of those 19%. So while it's clear that efficiency and being on top of what's new is important to both you and your marketers, don't be chasers of shiny objects. Last year, 43% of marketers and agencies said virtual reality was a revolutionary technology. This year, only 38% of you felt that way. So keep those shades on and think about what you're putting in front of your marketing clients. Does it make good business sense? Are there meaningful applications for the technology? If the answer is no to the above, then simply presenting it because it's shiny and new isn't going to win, many points with your clients. So, at the end of the day, is radical change required? Do agencies need to change the way they're structured, the way they prospect, the way they try and win and keep business, the way they support the clients they have? The answer, in my opinion, is a resounding yes, which frankly is no different than the yes we said in 2005, the yes we said after the recession in 2008, the yes we said throughout the start of this decade, and the yes we're going to be saying for generations to come. Agencies aren't going away. They just need to think and operate and be different if they're going to survive and bring value and have a meaningful place in this marketing world we live in and live by. So want to thank you all for your time today. Obviously, a lot of interesting things going on in the world of agency and marketer relationships and agency new business. Hopefully, some of the ideas we presented today prove helpful. Hopefully, some of the ideas today will be good reminders for you to maybe alter, change the way you're managing your business, your clients, new business development. If you have any questions, certainly feel free to reach out to me at mark@rswus.com. We have a ton of content on our site at rswus.com that can further enlighten you and give you some new ideas on how to most effectively manage your agency. So thanks so much. Have a great holiday and appreciate you attending today. Take care.